Welcome everybody to another episode of the Internationalie podcast. Before we start, let me talk a little bit about the podcast. So the Internationalie podcast is going to be a space where different international students, prospective ones, as well as current international students could get a glimpse into the life of international students in the US or abroad. This week, I am joined by my very, very dear friend, Heran. Welcome to the show, Heran.
Hi, Rutier. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we delve into the conversation, let me talk a little bit about your background. So Heran is from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. She has a bachelor's degree in public health from Georgia State University and a master's degree in nursing from Emory University. She currently works in a cardiac ICU as a registered nurse. Would you like to add more to your bio?
No, I think that's about it.
Awesome. All right. So, as the topic of our conversation today is dealing with imposter syndrome, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word imposter syndrome?
Okay. Wow, that's a very deep question.
I know.
So I think the first thing that comes to mind is not feeling good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just feeling like you're not supposed to be where you are, and not feeling like you're meant to be there, but really you are. I don't know. Is that a good?
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, even for me, when I think about imposter syndrome, I think of the lack of belongingness, or like feeling like you belong in that space or in that environment that you're at. And I also feel like imposter syndrome also is very common in people who maybe have not been used to this same kind of environment their whole lives, and so they've been exposed to a different environment, a different culture, a different country, maybe possibly, and it's a feeling that really makes you feel kind of like you don't belong, right? So that's kind of the feeling I think about.
Like you're undeserving of your achievements, and like you feel like fraud because of what you're doing, but really you're not. It's a very weird it's a weird concept.
I know. When was the first time you heard the term imposter syndrome? Do you remember?
I don't remember the exact time, but I definitely remember that it was very recently, because I think like I really felt it when I first started nursing school. And I just felt like, oh my God, I do not deserve to be here. What am I doing here? All these people are way smarter than I am. How on earth did they even accept me to go here and do this? But yeah, I think it's just like over time I've come to accept that I'm just as good as everyone else. Or look, I don't know how to I mean, it's definitely something I'm still struggling with right now,
right?
But I think I just have like a different perspective, and it's not as bad as it was before, especially like person of color. I and as a Black person, I went to a very like nursing school. Just felt like I did not deserve to be there, and there weren't a lot of people that looked like me. I mean, there's like a number of people, but it was during the pandemic too. Well, I mean, like the peak pandemic, so it was mostly online, and if we ever like see each other in person, it was like maybe 8 people, and I was like the person of color there, only Black person, and it just felt like, oh my gosh, like I definitely do not deserve to be here. But recently discovered that that's not a good feeling, and that's wrong. I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. By the way, congratulations, you graduated not so long ago, so I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, we're gonna talk a lot more about that, but when I think about imposter syndrome, I think the first time I dealt with it was probably the first time I moved to the US, but that was in high school, wasn't college. So it was just me and my sister who were Ethiopians in our high school, and then when she graduated and I was a senior, I was the only Ethiopian there. But, luckily I didn't feel kind of left out because I was able to make friends with other students from different countries who kind of shared similar backgrounds and experiences. They were also from the continent, and we kind of made our own clique. But when I really, really felt syndrome was my first year of college. And I remember it distinctly because I was taking this chemistry class. And I remember this because I was talking to my sister. And she was like, "Oh, so how's class going?" And then I was like, well, everybody else here is smarter than me. And then she was like, "Why would you say that?" And that was when it clicked. I was like, why did I even think like that?
Yeah.
And it was a moment where I felt like every day I would go to class and everybody would be prepared, would be on point, would answer all the questions. And then I was just there like clueless and not knowing anything. And I was just like, okay, what am I doing here? Like, what is going on? Like, the college,
Yeah.
like, they made a mistake accepting me. I probably shouldn't be here. Like, all those kinds of emotions. But I didn't know that was imposter syndrome while I
Yeah.
was going through it until I vocalized it and talked to other people about it. Do you relate with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going on a tangent here, but as a
Yeah.
side note, I
Yeah.
think like growing up, if you asked me at that time,
Yeah.
definitely cover because you used to like rank like top 10. Do you remember when we were like younger? And I'm
Huh?
like, wow, Ruth is really smart. Yeah. And I mean, it's so
Oh
crazy
my
because
god.
other people feel that way, but then you just don't think of yourself
Yeah.
that way. But yeah,
Yes.
anyway, go to your question.
Yeah.
Definitely to that. I did not know that I was feeling imposter syndrome when I was going through it. I think definitely in like undergrad, I did go through it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just like had to I just ignored it and just felt like it was just okay, I'm failing. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
that smart. And then I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
never really dealt with it until later on in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was like particularly even being in an environment where there are different types of people from everywhere. And I think even for me, like Smith was a predominantly white institution, and so there weren't a lot of people that looked like me. And I was probably like one of the few Ethiopians who went there, and if not one of the few Africans there. And so most people who are there are white or Asian, or like people I didn't really grow up with. And so the sense of belongingness kind of fades away because your family's not there, your friends that you grew up with are not there, you're just by yourself trying to survive, get good grades and graduate. And it could be really, really hard to try to find a home for your own self, for your own space, and trying to find people that relate with you, that relate with your values. And yeah, and I wanted to ask you, like, what was the first maybe instance or time that you had to deal with imposter syndrome, if at all?
Like, ooh, the first instance. Okay, yeah, I have a good example. So when I first
Ooh.
started nursing school,
Yeah.
like one of my, it was like pathophysiology, the class, and I had an exam. Like, no, not an exam, just like a little tiny quiz. And
Uh-huh.
God, I bombed that quiz. It was so bad. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And like our whole cohort had like a group me and they're like, wow, like, I got an A, blah, blah, blah.
Oh
And
my god.
I definitely do not belong in this class or this
Yeah.
school, this program at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just had to get it together because at that point it was a little
Mm-hmm.
I'm kidding, I did not, that's not an option. But yeah, I mean like that was the first time I was like, holy, I just don't know if this is gonna work out for me. But I mean eventually it did. But I
Mm-hmm.
just like it took a lot of mental work and I just like needed to stop being a perfectionist because I think like imposter syndrome can come from being a perfectionist because when you expect as a perfectionist you expect everything will go perfectly for lack of
Right.
and
Right.
so and like we think that every aspect of our life is going to be amazing, perfect, you're going to do everything great for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's not a realistic goal to have. So when we
Yeah.
fail to, we just feel like we're not good enough or that we
Mm-hmm.
feel like we have to hide our failures from everyone else or
Yeah.
else everyone will know that we're a fraud when you're really not.
Right.
you know?
Right.
So
Right.
I definitely needed to just give myself a reality check and just like know that I'm not perfect, and
Mm-hmm.
really nobody is. And that was just something I had to come to terms with. And
Yeah.
it's
I know, I know. Thank you for sharing that. And I think even for me, the realization that everybody else, you know, they do not have everything figured out, I came to realize that later on. And, the people who come who are like, overachievers, who are presidents of every club and like who have 4.0 GPAs, like it's just they're fronting. Like not everybody has their things together. And um there are, and I've learned that through time, and after a while, like I see people um kind of not disintegrate, but kind of like see them not really perform at that level. And I understand, like, it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to excel in every single thing that you're doing. And it could
yeah,
be like very toxic for you as a person trying to just be in college and trying to graduate. And that's like, can you imagine like the amount of pressure that we put on ourselves trying to survive?
yeah, I think we're all our own harshest critic. And I just feel like I think I just needed to understand what my capabilities are
Mm-hmm.
and just know that I am not going to be the president of every club or any club. I've never been the president of any club, and that's
Yeah,
okay. Because,
exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean, at the end of the day, you just have to think about yourself, your mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're really going to try to juggle like everything, you're not going to be able to put in effort in all of it. So I think it's
Yeah.
just okay to focus on one or two things. Even
Mm-hmm.
if it's just one thing, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that you know what you need to do, and you can perfect that one skill. Like, it's totally fine. i
Yeah.
i just really needed to hear that, and I needed
Yeah.
this is like also like advice for myself, because you're not going to get everything right all the
Mm-hmm.
time. You're not going to be perfect all the time, and you just have to come to terms with that, and that
Mm-hmm.
does not make you a failure at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
definitely.
for saying that. I'm sure,
Yeah,
like, I was telling someone the other day, like, I'm really good at giving advice to other people, but
yeah,
my own advice. And that was
exactly.
like something that I've been thinking about. Because can you imagine if like someone that you really care about was going through this? These are the kinds of things that you would tell. You're not that kind to yourself, right? You don't tell that to you. Wonder why we do that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why either, but I think I've just like started to like try to take my own advice, or maybe like talk to a friend about it, because I mean, like, talking to your friends really helps. Just like opening up about your feelings, like feelings of like imposter syndrome, I think it really helps,
Mhm.
because it just helps you understand that you're not alone, and you're not the
Yeah.
only one that's like struggling, or maybe you're
Yeah.
not struggling and you just feel like you're struggling. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Mm, that's very important. Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. Because sometimes it's just your perception about certain things. What you think might not be necessarily be the same. When
Yeah, I mean, like, going back to what you were saying, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, Ruth is like the smartest person I know. Like, going to speak,
Oh my God, Anna.
you're thinking in your head, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't belong here.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So
And it does happen, by the way. And
yeah,
um it took me, I think it really did take me a while to realize that I do deserve to be in that space, and I do deserve to be in college, and I do deserve all the opportunities that are coming my way.
yeah,
And I think it also kind of comes with our conditioning, or like how we grew up. Um and I think my next question, the one that I wanted to ask you, was why do you think people of color, or maybe international students particularly, go through imposter syndrome more often than domestic students in the US?
Mm, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily say they would go through it
Mm,
more. I don't know if there's like
mm,
a significant difference, but I feel like as like a person of color, or maybe like someone from that's not from America, I think that there's a lot of pressure from our families. As you know, like,
mm-hmm.
Habesha families are very like,
Yeah.
you have to do this and you have to do that, and
Mm-hmm.
major in like a career that's gonna get you a job or something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's definitely a lot of pressure, and they expect a lot from us, and I think that expectation makes us feel like, okay, we're not as good as other people,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
just not as good as like I don't know, the regular American kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just pressure. And then like
Mm-hmm.
that pressure translates into us having a lot of pressure on ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
there's external pressure and then there's internal pressure and then I don't know. And then that's
Yeah.
pressure.
I know. A lot
Yeah.
of pressure.
A lot
Yeah.
of pressure from
I
everywhere.
know.
It
Yeah.
doesn't.
And I think what you said about how even in when we're growing up there was a lot of expectation for us to choose a field that's gonna give us the job security, so then we don't have to worry about money, or like that a path, a major that would set us on a path of success, or quote
Yeah.
unquote what society deems to pursue. um and I think even for me, what I've seen in my college experience um was that a lot of international students, particularly as you mentioned, people of color, um especially when you go to college and you're in a space where a lot of people around you are very, very different from those that you grew up with.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to show off, and everybody's trying to be competitive. Everybody is answering questions in class. And it's kind of like theatrical almost, how everybody pretends to be, to have it all together. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, when you talk to someone about it, and the person who you think has everything together, they're gonna tell you, oh, actually, the metaphor of like the duck who's like wiggling underneath the water, but then on top it's like everything is fine, but like deep down, like they're they're like struggling.
That's a
And
good
that's the
one
kind,
of that.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
like
all.
what I think about. Like, people are drowning in their personal lives, but they have this facade that they have everything figured out. And I think for me, interacting with those kinds of people made me feel as if I was not enough, or I wasn't smart enough, or I did not belong to be in that kind of space.
Yeah.
And it does take, it took me a while to realize that, oh, everybody else is struggling, it's not just me.
Yeah, and like even going back to like our childhood, like elementary school and middle school, there was
Yeah.
like ranking, and if you're like not in the top 20,
Yes.
you're not smart enough, and like it used to make me feel not great. Like it
Yes.
made me feel terrible about myself, even like as a
Mm-hmm.
kid. So that definitely conditioned us to feel like we're not
Yeah.
good enough to be wherever we are, and
Yep.
I don't know. It wasn't. I looking back, it just was not great. I just don't think that's
Yeah.
like an way to make feel people like children, I guess, feel
Mm-hmm.
good. I think it just later on translates into imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that up. I just I'm gonna go off on a tangent here as well, but
Yeah.
you are my oldest friend. We've known each
Yeah.
other since we were 3. Can
Yeah.
you imagine?
That's so crazy because I was thinking about it and I was just trying to narrow down how long we've known each other. Yeah.
Yeah. More than
Which
20 years for sure. 21
oh
years?
my yes, 21, 22 years. Yeah.
Oh my
Well,
god, can you imagine?
yeah. Yeah.
So we
Unbelievable.
have
And
been through a lot. Huh?
yeah, and I mean, I'm so happy that we still keep in contact and
Yes. Oh my
yeah.
god, same. Of course. I'm very, very, very happy to have you as my oldest friend. And I hope that we continue to be old friends
I know,
until the
even
day.
though when was I think it was when you left from Ethiopia.
Yes. That
What
was
year was
the
that?
last time.
Like
That was 2013. That's almost 10 years
20,
ago, Heran. Oh my
and we still
god.
talked.
I
Crazy.
I know. I know.
Yeah,
Um
unbelievable.
it's so crazy. It's so crazy. But
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful for our friendship, and I hope
Yeah.
that, we continue to remain good friends, and I hope to see you soon. I really do. I miss you so much.
Me too.
Um
I'm trying to we'll
we
make
will.
we'll
We'll
make
make
time.
it happen for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. But going back to the point where you were making about, how in school we had the ranking system, I was
Yeah.
never a fan of that, but it was a conditioning. Okay, I have to excel, and that's kind of like what was expected of me, and so I had to do it. And I realized later on how that limits, students' creativity, and how, even standardized testing, like,
Yeah. Oof.
very unnecessary part of schooling that we have to go
Yeah.
through and that everybody else has to go through. Um and I think it's a very important connection that you make between, you
Yeah.
know, the conditioning that we had in school, and then that translates later on into college, where you feel like, oh, maybe other people are right, like maybe I'm not good enough. Do you relate with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely relate.
Mm-hmm.
Think maybe when I moved to the US, I just like really felt like I needed to prove to myself and like to everyone else that I was really smart or like intelligent and get good grades and all of that stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like I remember just feeling terrible, especially like in undergrad. If I like failure was not an option. If I did terrible on a test, it just made me feel awful.
Yeah.
And just like I used to measure my self-worth through that.
Right. Right.
And it was wrong. I know. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. I did it in nursing school too, which was like not too far, like not long ago, and because I needed to have a conversation with myself and just know that my self-worth is not tied to how smart I am or
Mm-hmm.
what my grades look like, because at the end of the day, no one cares about your grades. Like, I mean, to be completely like,
Nobody.
nobody looked at my undergrad GPA, and I worked really hard for that. And I'm like, wow, this is very disappointing. You know, it just doesn't
Yeah.
feel as like satisfying as it was supposed to when I was doing it. And then
Right.
so I just like needed to let go of that idea. Like, I mean, even to be honest, yesterday I failed an exam for work, and
Yeah.
oh my god, I felt so terrible at first, but then like later on I was like, I can retake it. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
stupid.
Yeah.
This does not determine my intelligence, doesn't determine my self-worth. So
Mm-hmm.
I needed to let one go, and I was really proud of myself because that took a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
For sure.
yes.
Yeah. I'm proud of you too. I mean, it takes a
Yeah.
lot of courage and self awareness and self work to even like realize that. And it's a lot of hard work. I don't think many people realize how hard it is to try to talk yourself into things and try to make sure that you're feeling okay after you've failed something. And I think even for me, um when I was a first year, like I talk about this often, but you know, during the spring semester, I really struggled. You know, trying to even go to class, like that wasn't even something, you know, something that was expected of me. Obviously, I have to show up to class, but I wasn't even able to go to class.
Yeah.
And at that point, I remember talking to a friend and telling them, "Oh my God, I am such a bad student." And then my friend was looking at me, was like, "Ruth, you're not a bad student. You're just having a bad moment. You know, you're not,
Yeah.
you know, in general, you're not a bad student." And then I realized, and I felt like I was failing myself. I was failing my parents. Like everything was just, you know, the pressure was just really getting to me. Um, and I do remember feeling like that. And then later on, you know, things work out. And even if you fail a class, it's not the end of the world. And as you said, like really nobody cares about your grades. Like if you ask me what my grades were in a specific class now, I wouldn't even remember. And it's
Yeah.
that meaningless now. But back then, it was like the only thing that mattered, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just so sad how like the time I wasted feeling bad about it, because like I know like I'm smart enough. I just like needed to just I feel so terrible about the time I wasted feeling bad about it. So like
Mm-hmm.
now yesterday I had a very good day the rest of the day, because I'm like, you know what? This is not
Mm-hmm.
that it's not gonna
Yeah.
matter. Obviously I can retake it. It'll help me
Mm-hmm.
understand the concept better. So I think maybe like just adding some positivity to it, and just like learning from your mistakes and learning from your failures is the best lesson you can get.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's so true. And I wanted to ask you, like, when did that switch happen? Like between feeling like you did not belong in that certain space and then you trying to convince yourself like, no, I do actually deserve to be here.
I think just like talking to other friends, like even when I was in school, just talking to people and just saying like, "Oh my gosh, I did so bad on this test." And then once
Mm-hmm.
I opened up, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I failed this test too. Like, what are we doing wrong? How are we going to make
Yeah.
it go better for
Yeah.
ourselves?"
Yeah.
Just like opening up to a friend or just opening up to people and being honest helps you, and also helps other people, because it helps you because you learn from their experiences, and then it helps other people because it helps them understand they're like not stupid, and I'm just really nice to help each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think a switch happened where, I mean, like it wasn't a complete switch, but it just like maybe like a good 40%. You know, like I was like, okay, now I know. I think the same boat, and I just don't need to beat myself up about it.
Yeah. And if only more people were honest about what they're actually experiencing. Like, why do you think that is? Why do you think people don't want to share the fact that they're also struggling?
I don't know. I think it's also like an image thing, and also being afraid that others will judge you based, I don't know, like a test score, which is really silly. If you're judging based off a test score,
can you imagine?
Fundamentally wrong in there.
There's something wrong.
You have to unpack that another day. But but like in general, I honestly don't know. I think it's just like your image. I think people are afraid of judgment and just like thinking that you're not competent. And also, so like I think that I wanted to make a point earlier that when you when you like don't grasp something quickly, you feel like you're a failure because you think that competent people, quote unquote competent people, can do it, but they can handle any problems without any difficulty. And then when you don't, then you could also like stem from those people not sharing like their failures. Maybe could stem from that. Maybe they feel like they're not competent, so they're gonna hide it and just put up a front, you know, just to make it seem like they're not liars.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that connection made sense.
No, that does make sense. And I also realize now that, you know, when I started opening up and other people started also sharing their struggles with me, and they were like, okay, so how are we going to, even if it's like a class, for instance, I remember, you know, after first year, you know, sophomore year and junior year, I remember like, you know, after sharing certain, you know, challenges that I was facing with the class, and if I had a friend in that class, we used to study together, and then we used to get good grades together. And so we had to sort of like find a system that worked for us, and like go to the professor and constantly talk to them, go to office hours, and like, and it makes you feel good when your effort and your hard work kind of pays off when you get those grades at the end, and you will get those grades. Like that's almost a guarantee if you really do put in the work. And so this is just, you know, my way of understanding is if you have someone else who's also struggling with you, but then you guys are like studying together and like trying to solve that issue, and you kind of make it to the finish line, it feels so good.
It really does. Yeah, it does. And I mean, like that, just having someone to share that with is kind of nice. Like, just know that you're not by yourself. And I think it's so important to share with like your friends, like, hey, I'm great. Like, it's okay to not be okay. Like, I mean,
I know. Like a lot of people say that, but it's really hard to actually believe that, you know?
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, it's okay to like, you know, cry it out. Like, totally fine.
I know.
Let those emotions.
I wish more people would express their emotions more freely. I don't know why society tells us to inhibit our emotions. And I remember I had this professor who was my advisor, and really, really like her. She used to say, you know, so she told us in class, so whenever we had like assignments and she could see like everybody was so stressed out with other classes, she'd be like, oh, okay, I've pushed your assignment for a week. You have a week to prepare. And then we'd be like, oh my God, thank you so much. And so what she used to say was, so she said like one time a student came to her office hours and she unexpectedly started crying, and the student felt so embarrassed, and she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you know, I shouldn't have cried, I'm sorry I cried in front of you. And then my professor, she was like, why are you apologizing for being a human being? Like, why are you apologizing for crying? Like, that's just a normal human emotion, and why are you apologizing? And I still remember that to this day. And she kind of created a space where all of us felt comfortable enough to talk to her about our struggles. And she used to give us advice. Like, she used to tell me to meditate and like take time for myself and take care of myself. And these are the kinds of things that I did not expect professors would do or like tell you to do.
Yeah.
And when you have that kind of free space to be who you are wholly and express your emotions freely, and I think that could be a very powerful thing, to make you feel like you belong and to make you feel like there are other people who do care about you, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that everyone else around you is not, they're not perfect. And,
Yeah.
you know, even professors are humans. And I'm sure they've gone through this. They have
Yeah.
experience with students like breaking
Mhm.
down or just not doing well. So
Yep.
I think it's like acknowledging your feelings and just acknowledging that everyone else could potentially go through this, even though they don't express it to you. There's also like
Yeah.
I don't know, kind of makes me feel better. Like, okay, yeah, I know
Yeah.
that other people are probably struggling too. Because like before,
Yeah.
my mindset was like, oh my gosh, everyone else is doing really well, and I'm the only person that's doing bad.
Mm.
But
Mm.
okay, I'm not doing great, but maybe other people are not feeling that like they're doing amazing too. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think like finding comfort in that helps me a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Yeah.
Right? I know. That's really good. And, trying to think back about imposter syndrome, what are some of the specific things that you did to help you feel like you belonged in the space that you were at?
Yeah, so I think like number one of my like biggest problems was comparing myself to my peers or
Mm.
up to like my friends in general. And like I really, really struggled with that because I felt like I was like everyone else's success was highlighting my own flaws. And
Mm.
that is just like not the best mindset to have.
Yeah.
Really, really needed to stop comparing myself to people and
Mm-hmm.
just like understanding that we're all on a different path. Even if
Yeah.
we're doing the same thing, we are going to
Definitely.
experience things the same. I'm differently. Like the same, if
Yeah.
it's one experience, we're going to like go through it very differently.
Yep.
And I just really like had to think about it and understand it. And I mean, I still struggle with it to
Yeah.
this, like
Yeah.
try to up to others and
Right.
oh my gosh, okay, this is not a good thought to have for
Yeah.
my mental health too. And also I think like social media really really plays a big role too.
Mm.
Because like I really don't try to like I try social media not to like influence my life. I
Right.
man, I try really hard, but
I
sometimes
know.
it's difficult to do
It
that.
is very hard. It is very hard.
On constantly seeing everyone having a great time or doing
Right.
this, doing that, and you're just like, oh my god, my life
What am
sucks.
I doing?
Yeah, what on earth?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think just like
Mm.
comparing myself, like just stopping comparing myself to others
Yeah.
was one of the best things I have
Mm.
done myself.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm still working on it. It's
Right.
obviously not perfect, but
Yeah.
don't compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the best advice anybody could give you.
Yeah.
And I also used to like say that, remember when we used to have like tests or something, and then the score would come, and then the teacher would make such a big fuss about who got the highest score and stuff like that. And then I remember having conversations with friends who were like, oh, but I always had that mentality that I should always compare myself to my previous self or like my previous accomplishments. And so I always try to top that
Yeah.
instead of trying to compete with someone else, because as you said, we're all on a completely different journey. Even
Yeah.
if we're experiencing the same thing, even if we're in the same school, even if we're doing the same major, we're
Exactly.
completely different people. um and as you mentioned, thank you actually for sharing the fact that social media nowadays can make it really, really hard for you to kind of feel a sense of self-worth and trying
Yeah.
to be like, okay, I don't have to show off to the world or to social media what I'm accomplishing, what I'm eating every day, or like who am I hanging out with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you see other people doing it, it's kind of unavoidable that you're going to feel left out, or you're going to feel a certain way. Like even if you try not to, you are going to end up feeling something.
Exactly.
um yeah. And so what
But
I try to do is like sometimes like sorry, did I cut you off?
no, 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 go ahead.
Okay, so I was just gonna say what I try to do is like I take like these breaks. So like it could be for a week, it could be 2 weeks, or for a month. I just don't use social media, and then after a while I just log in and like check in with everybody, and then I log out. And like
Yeah.
trying to like, this is like my way of saying like, okay, I'm not really addicted to it, because I could control the amount of time I put into it, right? But at the
Yeah.
same time, there is that urge to see what everybody else is up to. And
Exactly.
Like, what did I miss? What did I miss? Right.
Yeah. And also, like, I think that everyone seems to forget that social media is only like 30 seconds of someone's life. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know how
Mm-hmm.
long it takes for me to get a nice selfie? It takes a lot of time, okay? And
I
so,
know.
and I assume that a lot of people go through that too. Like when you're
Mm-hmm.
posting a picture, it's going to take a lot of takes, or it's
Yep.
not be perfect the first try. So it's
Yeah.
a lot of effort
Yeah.
and doesn't portray like your whole life. So I
Mm-hmm.
just try, like, one thing that helps me deal with social media is just remembering that this is not a whole capture of someone's
It's
life.
not.
Just 30
It's,
seconds of their day, or just like
mm-hmm.
they're eating. Maybe it doesn't taste good. It looks pretty, but it doesn't taste good, or like,
Exactly.
yeah. So I
Exactly.
just feel like we just need to stop looking at others and just, I think we should just celebrate them and like be happy for them. Okay, you're eating something amazing. Congratulations. That's amazing. Like not in a sarcastic way, but like
I know.
in a real
I
way.
know. I
And
know.
just moving on and eating whatever you need to eat. You know what I mean?
I know. I know. I
Yeah.
mean, oh my god, this is hilarious. And I think this is a struggle that everybody goes through, and maybe like
Yeah.
our generation, it's more pronounced because of technology and everything. I'm pretty sure our parents' generation did not have to deal with all this pressure and like struggle. I
Yeah.
don't know, man.
Maybe
It's a
they had
different.
struggles, but
Maybe.
like we don't know.
I know. We never know
Something that
actually.
was as addicting as social media. I don't know what
Mm,
there was. Who
I
knows?
know. Who knows?
Yeah. But it's
That's
crazy.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
An interesting thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, this was nice. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed our conversation
I
today.
mean, I have some more points to make, Ruth. But
Can you please make more points?
yeah, I came prepared. Like I was writing
Oh,
attention.
please, please, please.
Okay, so I can start with okay, so one thing that also could help is it helps to list down the things that you're good at,
Mm,
just so you can see how much you've achieved,
mm,
and the list might be longer than you think. So
ooh,
and like you can make a list of things that you want to improve, and
mm-hmm.
having like a realistic goal will help with that. So
Right.
don't only focus on the things that you can't do, or on
Mm-hmm.
the reasons why you don't belong somewhere. Just make a list for yourself and be like, why am I here? How did I get here? And
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to stay here and improve myself and work on myself?
Right. Right.
I think that's something that helped me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is self-doubt. Oh my gosh, don't do that.
That's a big one. Yes.
Don't doubt yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
just believe that. Like I'm the type of person that believes that everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you were not meant to be where you are right now, you wouldn't be. So just accept that and
Mm-hmm.
believe in yourself, for
Right.
real. Yeah.
That's
And
true.
yeah, and just like trust in your own abilities, because you worked so hard to be where you are right now. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you didn't come out of nowhere and just get a good, or
Yeah.
do well for yourself in life. You worked
Mm-hmm.
hard for it. I think
Yeah.
we deserve to give ourselves some credit.
Mm, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, and then last thing is failure is always an option. It's okay to fail. Don't like just learn from your mistakes and
Mm-hmm.
different way later on, but
Mm-hmm.
an option, because I know that growing up we were told failure is definitely not an option. It's not
Right.
okay, but it's
Right.
total. Yeah,
Right. Right.
those are my words of wisdom.
Oh, those are so nice. The whole time you were saying this, I was like nodding. I was like, yes, yes. And I'm trying
Yeah.
to like really, internalize it as well. And as you said, like, dealing with imposter syndrome, it doesn't really end. It's kind of like a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
It doesn't end in school. You could also experience it at work. And I really, really appreciate what you said about failure is an option, and I really do relate with that, because a lot of times we don't think that we're even allowed to make mistakes, or we're allowed to mess up. But at the end of the day, I believe it's when you mess up and it's when you make a mistake that you learn a lot. Can you
Yeah.
imagine if like you never made a mistake, and then it's just like
How
how
do
how
you
boring.
seriously, like how?
Like, imagine, it would be so boring. Like, if you knew everything, if you knew if you wouldn't make any mistake, if you were so successful just from the get-go, I think that would be such a boring life, because there wouldn't be any bumps along the way for you to even remember or like learn from, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And life doesn't go that way. So, and I think we're all meant to learn from every experience that we have,
Mm-hmm.
and just like remembering that it's fine. Like whatever is happening, especially if it's like beyond your control and you
Yeah.
can't do anything about it, then I
Yeah.
think it's so good to remember that you just have to let it go and just let it be and just learn
Yeah.
from it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not the end of the world.
It's not, trust me, like things will pass. Like it's not permanent, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I really like what you said about you didn't come from nowhere. Like you really did
Yeah.
work hard to get here. And I really do relate with that. And I think a lot of people, even the fact that, you graduated college, like you deserve a medal for that. Like I know how hard it is to just even reach to that point. And I don't think a lot of us give ourselves that credit. And then,
Yeah.
after graduation, you just forget about it and you just move on to your life. But the sacrifices that you made, the sleepless nights that you had, and the amount of things that you have to get to try to reach that level, to try to reach that goal that you set for yourself, I don't think it should go unnoticed. And I think people should celebrate that more often, and really, like, really, really, you should pat yourself on the back. It's like you did this,
Yeah.
good job.
Exactly. And like if someone else didn't, like if whoever is maybe hiring you, or I don't know, whoever's like on the admissions board, whatever,
Yeah,
for college, if they didn't believe you deserve to be there, they definitely would not put you there. So you need to
exactly,
think about that. It's not luck.
exactly.
I mean, yeah, some things in life might be related to luck, but definitely your hard work pays off a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Think about that at times.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think that's very important. And but sometimes, we need reminders, and we need someone to tell us that when we forget it, and we do forget it sometimes. So it's really
Yeah.
nice to
I mean,
have
of
that reminder.
course, is nice
Yeah.
sometimes. But I think really believing in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself and you don't think you can do it, other people are going to doubt you. Because like just like talking from experience, all the times I said, oh my gosh, like I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, and people are like, no, you know how to do it, like tell me. And I'm like, I don't. And then eventually they started believing me and thinking, oh
Mm,
yeah, she doesn't know how to do it, she's honest about it. But
right.
really, like I probably knew how to do it. And I think
Yeah.
if you don't believe in yourself, like other people are also going to start to doubt you too.
Right.
So I think you just need to just like have the confidence. And I know it's really hard as a person who's like, if you're not from America
Mm,
or anything, it's very hard to have the confidence. But I think it's so
yeah.
important to do that, because a lot of people get by with confidence and zero of anything else. Just like they're right confidence. So
I know. I know.
it's easier said than done, but I think it just takes some time. Like
It
just
does.
have the confidence, especially if
Yeah.
it's something you're good at. Have the
Yeah.
confidence. Yeah.
Exactly. I think confidence is very, very key. Even if do you even realize in class when someone else says something and you were thinking about it, or like you said something and they rephrase it in their own way, and then they say it and they end up being the ones who are like, oh, so and so is smart. And you're just like, but
Yeah.
I could have said that. That wasn't
Yeah.
even that complicated.
It wasn't, but then like you're thinking in your head, oh my gosh, yeah, they probably phrased it better. So
Right.
I get
Mm-hmm.
they get the credit. Not
I
me.
know. I know.
Yeah. What are
Well, do
how
you have, huh?
dealt with it? How have
What,
you dealt with imposter syndrome? Like what are some
me?
things you've done to overcome?
Yeah, I've been thinking, and I think I do relate to a lot of the things that you mentioned, Heran, like,
Yeah.
trying to open up with other people. And if you have really close friends or even family members, I'm sure
Yeah.
they would understand. And I'm sure, at that point when you're feeling really low, they're going to remind you of your worth, and they're going to remind you of the amount of sacrifices that you made to even reach that place. And so I
Yeah.
think there's a huge learning, and a huge level of satisfaction from sharing what you're struggling with other people. I don't know what it is, but when you just share something, it's like something is coming off of your chest and you just feel free. And that's the kind of thing that I used to do, was talk to other people, and even reach out to professors. If I feel like I'm struggling in a certain class, I'll definitely make sure to talk to the professor like every single day. And that would make me feel better, because I know that the professor would understand the struggles that I am going through, and so they would they would really try to help me maybe navigate through a lot of other things. And so I think like really opening up to other people really did help me. And then I also used to journal. I used to write about things that I was feeling about. I was reading this quote the other day. It said, if you're overthinking, write. If you're underthinking, read. And I was
No.
just like, oh,
Okay.
that's really good.
Yeah.
And so I realized, it's like a pattern I've noticed in myself where if I have a lot of thoughts in my mind and I'm really, really overthinking, I need some sort of, outlet or like some sort of way that I could express that emotion. And then after, usually for me, it's writing. And so after I've written down everything, and I don't even like read it again sometimes. And then
Yeah.
that just feels like I expressed myself to someone without really expressing myself to someone.
Yeah.
And so, trying to find the outlets, and then also, doing things that you like, activities that you like, things that really bring you joy. And it doesn't have to be serious. Like, for instance, I used to take dance classes in college. Like, you know how meaningless that sounds to someone else, but it
Yeah.
really did mean something to me because I was looking forward to those classes every week, and it was an outlet for me, trying to balance with everything that's going on, the stress, and especially senior year when everybody's asking me, oh, so what are you going to do after graduation? Like, I used to hate that question so much.
Yeah, that just like put me in a whole depression. It was all
I
you're
know.
just
And
made
it's
me
just like, yeah,
so you're right.
it's crazy.
So having an outlet like of your emotions is really it's good, for sure.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of
Yeah.
weight off yours.
Oh, yeah. For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know what works for you best until you try everything, until you give yourself a chance to try different things. And I think to do that, it requires being open-minded and trying to, not being afraid of trying new things and opportunities that come your way. I'm pretty sure a lot of us, say no to a lot of things that we haven't done before. And,
Yeah.
being the first to do things could be very scary at first. But I think, on the other side of discomfort, there's
Yeah.
always learning and growth. So
Absolutely.
that's what I think helped me, maybe. I mean, I'm still dealing with it kind of, but I
Yeah.
think I'm in a much better position now than when I was while I was in college, especially first year. Yeah, for sure. I've noticed a lot of growth in my mindset as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing we all need to remember is that this is going to take some time, and it just like really takes a minute for you to change your perception and just change your mindset. So it's not going to happen overnight, as most things don't. So
Yeah.
we just need to remember it takes some time and it takes some consistency, and you just need to work on it and try to do it as much as you can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, no matter how well you plan things or how well you plan your life, sometimes there are things out of your control. There are things that you really can't control that happen. And I think being able to take things just the way they come and trying to make sense of things and trying to be kind to yourself, at the end of the day, it's hard, nothing is meant to be easy. So,
Yeah, unfortunately.
I know. Can you imagine like us
Yeah.
being like, kids and trying to like imagine what life is gonna be like? Because I always wanted to grow up when I was a kid, and now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I wish I was a kid. you know?
No, so me too, for real. I was very eager to be old, but now I'm like, oh my God, I'm so old. What am I doing with my life?
But you're not
But
even
like
that
even like
old.
yeah, and like even just like the plans I made as I don't even know. If you asked me 2 years ago if I was gonna be a nurse, I would have said over my dead body as I was applying to nurse. I'm definitely not gonna be a nurse.
Right.
But we are now, so
Well,
it's always okay to accept that things are not go as you planned it. So don't feel too bad. Yeah, and I really, really like all my friends hate me for it, but I always say if it's meant for you, it will happen for you. So don't fight it. Like just don't. Yeah.
That's like solid advice. Like, why would anybody have problems with that
I know I just say it too much.
all the time? I see.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's my
no, but
advice for
that makes sense though. That makes a
yeah.
lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. So
For
just
sure.
accept your success. You are to be where you are right now. If you weren't, you
Mm-hmm.
were there.
Yeah,
So just
that makes sense.
think about it, celebrate yourself, and then move on. That's all.
Such is life. I think
That's
we have cracked the code, or like the secret to life for anyone looking for it. We've just said it here. I don't think it could get any simpler than this.
you can't. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, easier said than done, but
For sure. For sure.
you can
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Oh, this is so nice. Oh my god, Heran.
Yeah. It was good.
Uh, do you
But
have any advice for
mm,
things that maybe you forgot to mention for prospective international students or for current international students who are dealing with imposter syndrome?
um okay, let me think. I think I wrote some things down. Give me 1 second to pull it up.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, just as an international student, I think like being different is okay.
Mm,
You know,
that's a
you're
quote. I'm gonna
yeah.
write that.
Oh, okay. Being different is okay. Nice.
Yeah, I love
Um,
it.
yeah, and be different, be who you are. Don't try to condense yourself or just condense your personality, your culture, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is just
Mm-hmm.
to feel accepted. It's
Yeah.
totally to be different, because I know that the whole sense of belongingness means that you have to be similar to everyone else, but
Mm-hmm.
oh, you can stand out. And
Yeah.
like, I think that's okay, especially like international students, like having like a difficult name. I really struggled with that. My name is
Yeah.
very too, and just like having to Americanize it made me feel so sad, but it was just something like I had to deal with. But then
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like, okay, I think maybe you guys can learn how to pronounce my name.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you have a different, like, you look different or your name is different or your culture is different doesn't mean you shouldn't be there, because you have worked so hard to be where you
Yes.
are. So I think just like remember that. And then
Mm-hmm.
um what else? Ay,
I
ay, ay.
love this. I love how you're like so prepared. I love the amount of passion you have. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to share my wisdom for
Yeah.
like I'm kidding. Oh, adjusting your expectations. Oh my God.
That's a big one.
Yikes. Yeah, that just having really high expectations has led to a lot of disappointment for me. So just like
Mm-hmm.
adjustments when you move to like a new place,
Yeah.
and don't expect everything to go like the movies. Sadly,
Yeah.
like I like was fooled by the
Yeah.
movies. I'll be honest.
Guilty as charged. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
just adjust your expectations and know that like it's not gonna be as perfect as you think it is. And make you feel like you shouldn't be there either. Like
Mm-hmm.
just, things are really different in real life than the way that they are portrayed on social media or like on the
Mm-hmm.
movie.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh I don't know if the rest are like very and I don't know if it's applicable to international students.
It's
Do you want me
okay. I think these are really good points that you've raised, and I think um, a lot of people would really relate to what we have said, and the stories
to...
that we've shared, and I think it's a very important topic that it doesn't get talked about as often, and I think we need to discuss it more so that people would know that they're not the only ones going through it, that there are other people who went through it before them, and people will continue to go through this emotion, but at least being cognizant of like, okay, this is maybe something that I might experience in college could really help you adjust your, as you said, expectations beforehand. So it's very, very important.
For sure. Definitely agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Heran. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Mm.
um I really don't have anything to add to the advice section because you really covered everything, and I agree with everything you said 100% and even more. And so, as you mentioned, trying to being different is okay, as you said. I'm gonna quote that, by the way. It's
Okay.
really just try to be yourself. And I think it sounds so cliche because it gets told so many times, but it,
Yeah.
it doesn't get simpler than that, because there's just only you in this world and there's nobody else like you. So
Yep.
Might as well embrace that. So
Embrace it.
yeah.
Love yourself. Love yourself.
Yeah. And with that, we
Yeah.
end a wonderful conversation of the Internationalie podcast. Just the last minute housekeeping. Please make sure to go follow the official Instagram page at Internationalie by Ruth. That is LIE. And send an email with your questions or concerns about being an international student to internationallybyruth@gmail.com. Thank you again for tuning in today. I hope you have a lovely week ahead of you. And take care of yourselves, everybody. Bye.
Bye.